Our society thrives off of the fact that we do not trust ourselves. And everywhere you look, you're going to be hearing people at the top telling you that you should not trust yourself and you should trust them. And that's why it's so important to cultivate trust within yourself. And I want to talk about how we can do that. If you like learning about topics like this that can help you empower yourself to be the best version of yourself, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for our next video. Trust is so important in our daily lives because we have to be able to cultivate confidence. The reason trusting ourselves is so important is because it's the foundation for why we are able to feel confident in ourselves, and it allows us to stop outsourcing all of our validation externally and actually only validate ourselves internally, which is the best way to make sure that you're making decisions for yourself and not lining the pockets of others, whether that is monetary wise or in their own form of confidence, right? Because people are always going to want you to seek them out for validation because it makes them feel good internally. The more confident that we become, the more grounded we are in our beliefs and the trust that we have within ourselves to know that we are doing the right things, we're in alignment with ourselves, and we have the right opinions on certain situations in society today. There's a few ways that you can look at things to understand if you do trust yourself. And some of the signs that you don't trust yourself are going to be constant self-doubt or second-guessing yourself, over-analyzing every decision and not being able to move into action, looking to others for approval or direction. So if you have an idea, you go to them and you say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Hey, oh, I think I might be doing this tomorrow. Oh, I might do this today. But in reality, you're seeking approval for these decisions instead of just acting on them because you don't really need to tell anybody what you're doing to accomplish what you're doing. Procrastinating or self-sabotage. So if you continue to put things off, or if you get to a point where you're really happy with things and then you kind of destroy everything, that can be a sign that you don't trust yourself. And then the most important thing that I believe signifies you don't trust yourself is ignoring your gut intuitions. And my personal belief is that's where it starts to erode our trust within ourselves, because our gut intuitions are a really big indicator that we are seeing something we need to pay attention to. And when we ignore that, we're ignoring the core root fundamental navigation system within ourselves. Not to worry if any of these signs are something that you've experienced, that's totally fine. There's no judgment here. These are just signs that you have areas that you need to work on to improve your self-confidence. And we're going to go through a couple of ways that you can do that. One of the first ways that you can help build this confidence within yourself is start to keep promises to yourself. Start as small as possible. It's the best way to do it. It can be something like telling yourself you're going to go for a 5-minute walk. Telling yourself that you're going to put your dishes away at the end of every night. Something very small, one thing a week that you can keep to consistently. You want to set yourself up with something that you can follow through on, because if you don't follow through and you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're actually going to minimize your trust within yourself even more. So you have to look at this, especially if you're just starting off, as an opportunity to find something that's really easy and maybe something that you're already doing, but just telling yourself that you're going to do it every single day, depending on what your qualifications are, but just something that you have to make sure you can keep that promise to yourself. As you're following through with this task, what it's telling you is it's telling you that this is evidence that you are reliable. It's telling you that when you make a promise to yourself, you're going to keep it. Now, think about if you have like a friend, for example, and like they keep making promises to you and they never follow through. Like they say like, oh, we're going to hang out on Saturday. And then every Saturday they flake on you and they're like, sorry, I had something better come up. Doesn't feel good. You don't trust them. The next time they try to make plans with you, you're going to think they're just going to flake. Why would they keep their word? Well, when you're not keeping promises to yourself, that's what you're building within yourself. So when you show up for yourself to keep these small promises, you're telling yourself that you're trustworthy. You're telling yourself that you love yourself because you're showing up for yourself, even if it's something as small as putting the dishes away, even if it's just something as small as showering every night. Like you can start very, very small, brushing your teeth every night. It doesn't have to be this big production. Arguably should start as small as possible, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build on top of that once you master a certain promise that you give to yourself. So if you have promised yourself that every night you're going to put your dishes away, for a whole week. The next week you can look and be like, wow, I've really been accomplishing this. Now, what's the next promise I want to keep to myself? Maybe I vacuum once a week. So you're adding an easy task that you can keep that promise to yourself on top of the promise that you've already kept. And you're going to snowball into completing more and more things for yourself because you trust yourself and you're building that trust in yourself. So you're almost like loading up on your ability to take on more tasks and more experiences through the trust that you're building within yourself. You have to be real with what's going on. You have to be real with what you feel about certain situations, and you can't lie to yourself just so you feel more comfortable or for other people to feel more comfortable. A lot of the time, we start to gaslight ourselves. We make excuses for things, and it's something that I think people have just like inherently been taught in society because that's how people train us to act, if I'm being honest. I mean, there were times in previous jobs that I worked at where I would raise certain issues and then I would get gaslit on it. And then eventually I started gaslighting myself and I thought I was the problem. It completely eroded my confidence to the point where I had to quit the job because I couldn't keep working in an environment like that. I'm like, you're telling me that I'm one of the best people here, but then you're telling me that every time I raise any type of opinion or situation that I'm completely off base when it's like an obvious situation that's occurring. And now I'm not trusting myself because like, how can you tell me I'm the best if all of the things that I'm saying aren't true, but they are true? And it completely eroded my confidence to the point where like it took me a long time to rebuild that. And it's because I allowed myself to be gaslit and I started to gaslight myself and I started to make excuses for the red flags that I was picking up on because I didn't want to face the reality that things were changing in a direction that I didn't like. And a good way to practice this self-honesty with yourself is to journal. I wish I would have done that more. I did journal a little bit, but not enough to keep track of things. But if you can journal and you have time to journal, even doing like voice memos, it's a really good way to check in with your truth regularly. This is going to allow you to start listening to your intuition because for that example in particular, like my intuition knew what was happening. My intuition knew what was going on. It knew so badly that when I would talk to my friends, I'd be like, I'm so stressed out. And I thought it was a me problem because they were always telling me it was like about my personal life or it must be about other things when in reality I was doing the work of 3 people. Of course, I'm going to be feeling that way, right? But my intuition was screaming at me because I would bring up my job to my friends, but then when I would go to work, there was like this cognitive dissonance within myself and I was ignoring my intuition and starting to blame myself. And that actually did so much more harm to myself than good. So you have to learn how to listen to your intuition because if you don't, then you're going to go down a path where it's eroding your confidence, eroding your trust in yourself, and then you will have to rebuild this once again. So one way that you can start to work on honing in onto your intuition is observing the patterns that are exposing these triggers to you. And what I like to do with this is I start to look at like what's making me feel expansive, what's making me see opportunity, what's making me see the good of life, right? Like what's making me feel grateful for what I have? And then what's draining me? What's making me feel like I never do enough? What's making me feel exhausted? What's making me feel emotionally unwell? Because my intuition is picking up on those things. And the more you learn the emotions that are tethered to your intuition, you'll be able to react to your emotions in real time, and that's when you'll be picking up on your intuition cues. You'll start to act on your gut feelings, even if they don't make logical sense. And it's something that's very hard because I think a lot of the time we like self-doubt ourselves, but those intuition, those gut feelings, they are there for a reason. What I see a lot in today's world, and especially in psychology, is that like psychology is always telling you like, well, it's because of your trauma. So you shouldn't listen to your gut because you're traumatized. And so your gut's not a good way to navigate through the world. What do you mean? I'm sorry. What do you mean? What do you mean? I experienced something really bad and my gut can pick up on bad things now. I don't like what you're telling me my gut's wrong when my gut knew the whole time that what was happening to me was wrong. No, your gut feelings always know what's wrong for you. It knows it's not in alignment with what you need because of your past experiences. So you don't disregard that because society's telling you not to listen to your gut because of money or whatever. You need to focus on becoming in tune with that and unapologetically following your gut intuition. I remember when I quit my job, oh my gosh, I went on FMLA and then I went back, and like the first day I was back, I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, we can't do this again. I cannot do this again, because I finally had enough space and clarity to understand what was going on with myself. And I remember when I went and was like, I told my ADHD doctor and I told a couple other people, like, I had put my 2 weeks in, they were all shocked. They were all shocked because they couldn't understand the decision I was making because of the status and person that I was in that position and the amount of money that I was making. But in reality, it was like, at what cost? To go against my entire essence and being of who I am and what I know is supposed to be meant for me? No, you have to take leaps of faith and trusting yourself, because the more that you deny your gut feeling, the more your confidence will erode to the point where it's going to be even harder to make those jumps. And so listening to your gut and understanding your gut, it takes time. Looking back on situations retroactively to understand when your gut was screaming at you is a really great way to understand what those emotions were. That's how I understand this now, because I didn't really understand this when I was going through it. Of course not. I have been out of that job for like a year and a half now, so I've been able to think about it, understand it, because sometimes I miss it and then I'm like, wait a second, let's reflect. Let's think about the times where I was so stressed out that I couldn't function. And I see these key pockets and these key areas where my gut was screaming at me to get out. So retroactively looking back at situations that didn't go the way you thought they would, and finding that one moment where your gut was telling you you need to get out of this situation, or you need to be aware of what's going on, and when you chose to not listen to it. Because you will look back and you'll be like, I did choose to not listen to that. At least for me. There's times where I literally said, I know my gut's saying not to do this, but I want to do it. I'm going to do that. That was mostly like boys, relationships. I have no regrets. But I did have a lot of things I had to work on after that relationship that I could have saved myself from, because my gut knew it was not good for me. It was not good. Your gut knows better than your brain. Trust me. As you start to listen to your intuition, you reflect on those times, you start to hone in on your intuition, you need to validate your own emotions. You don't need a reason. Like I said, right? You don't need a reason. It doesn't have to make sense to other people what's going on. You just need to accept your emotions without judging yourself. The world is going to judge you enough. Do not be a part of the world that judges everyone else. You need to give yourself safety and security to be yourself, to feel the way you're going to feel without shaming yourself, without judging yourself. The judgment that we tend to put on ourselves in these moments is a way of like abandoning ourselves when we need ourselves the most. And it's because we want to validate that we're not like what everyone thinks we're like, but in reality, everyone is like that. Because in reality, we all have emotions, we all fail, we all have moments where we feel like failures, we all have moments where we wish we could be better, and there's no shame in that. That's an indicator that you're reaching for something bigger and you're not there yet. That's a plus. You have to allow yourself to feel emotions, even if they don't make sense, and then be able to put them away and move on from them. Right? But if you don't validate your emotions and you're constantly gaslighting yourself and you're telling yourself that's not true, then how can you trust yourself? It's like going to your friend, right? And you go to your friend and you're like, oh, well, I feel X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, no, you're not that. Like, oh my gosh, can we just talk about that? I hate it. Oh my gosh, I hate when friends do this. I hate when friends do this. I'm a little bit different because like the way I work is I'm super hard on myself, but like it works for me. And so I will go in, I'll be like, I have not been doing enough. I am not being as effective as I am. I'm not working hard enough. I need to work harder. And then they're like, give yourself a break. No, I feel this emotion. I need to use this emotion to move forward. Don't tell me to chill out. Don't tell me to chill out. You go chill if that's what you want to do. But I wasn't validating my own emotions. I was going to them for internal or external validation. So that was my bad, right? But what it does is it's this most annoying thing ever. So think about yourself doing that to yourself. You're trying to find someone safe to talk to, and then you gaslight yourself in the same way that your friends do. Annoying. You're not going to trust yourself, because guess what? I don't trust those people. The second they do that, I'm not talking to you anymore. Ugh. It makes me so... It makes me mad, because it's gaslighting, and it's invalidation, and it's like, I didn't ask you. And so when you're doing that to yourself, think about how mad you're going to get at yourself that you're doing the same thing that you don't like when other people do that. Because I don't think this is like something that's like, I don't know. I don't think it's like something that most people don't relate to. I argue most people don't like being told the opposite of what they're feeling. We could flip this, right? You can go to your friend. You could be like, I'm so exhausted. And they're like, you need to work harder. Like, imagine if my friends came to me and they were like, I'm so exhausted. I can't go on. Oh, I'm so tired and burnout. And then I was like, you don't even do anything. Work harder. They would be like, what? I came to you for help. And then I'm just screaming at them. They would hate me too. So it goes for all types of emotions, right? You have to be able to validate your own emotions so you don't run into that situation, but you can't deny your own emotions in the same way that maybe friends, family, or other people in society will do, because that stunts your growth in being able to trust yourself. As you've gone through this practice of keeping these promises to yourself, practicing that self-honesty, listening to your intuition, reflecting and finding when your intuition is speaking to you, validating your own emotions like you're your best friend that knows you better than anybody else, this is going to lead you to making aligned decisions. And this is where the sweet spot is, because this is going to show you where you can make decisions that are in alignment with what you value, not what pleases others. I think right now we live in a really interesting world. We live in a world where everyone makes decisions to look cool or to have community or to be seen on the right side of history. If I see another comment of somebody saying, you're on the wrong side of history, it's like, you guys, the winners of history don't think they're winning ever in the present moment. So you can't really say that. If you're saying that, that's a red flag to me, because you're making me think that's very grandiose. You don't know how history is going to play out. You don't know what you're talking about. And a way to force other people to make decisions based on your own morals and ethics, and not convincing them that their morals and ethics should be the same as yours. You're just shaming people into compliance. And when you make aligned decisions, these types of comments do not force you down those pathways. These types of comments are not going to make you go down a path that's not in alignment with you. I've done that. I've made my decision to do certain things in certain ways because I didn't want to be seen in certain ways publicly. And, you know, I'm empathetic and I totally get it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't stop. They don't stop. They always want more. And you have to make decisions based on what you know is right, because that's how you learn and grow as well. So when you make these aligned decisions and you learn how to say no without guilt, you're learning how to trust yourself even if you fail. Because if you make the wrong decision, you trusted yourself and you can learn as to why you needed more information or why you needed to grow from that experience, because sometimes we have to grow from things. So there's nothing wrong in that. And that's why forgiving yourself is a big part of the process as well. Past mistakes do not define you. And that's just a fact. They don't define you. It's about how you overcome your past mistakes. So it's not about failing. It's about how you overcome that. And you have to be willing to apologize yourself for any self-betrayal that you've been in and start fresh. Show the same grace that you give your friends that you would give yourself, right? Maybe you don't give grace to people. Maybe that's a problem that you need to work on grace. But you have to be willing to forgive yourself. It's not about the mistakes that you've made. It's about how you overcome, how you learn, how you change, how you evolve. The more shame you hold on to, the more you don't trust yourself. The more you feel like you have made the wrong decision or that you're on the wrong side of history, whatever it is, you're not going to trust yourself. And that's why those types of people are not good people to have lead you, because really they're not leading with becoming a better person. They're leading with this core component of like shame and power and control. And you have to be willing to look at things objectively and be willing to fail forward and to forgive yourself when you're not perfect, inevitably, because no one is perfect. And that's okay, right? As much as I wish I was perfect, I'm not. And that's something that you have to learn. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. I look back on past relationships and it's like, yeah, I totally didn't listen to myself, and I totally did the thing that I said I wasn't going to do again, and then I completely self-combusted and destroyed myself. But guess what? I learned a really big lesson that I'll never do that again, and that I will 100% trust my intuition this time, and it's okay, because I learned so much. Because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have learned, and if I didn't need to learn those things, then I wouldn't have gone against my intuition, right? It's kind of like a loop. If you have learned the lessons, then you don't do the things that go against the lesson itself. And if you're failing, maybe you make a mistake and you don't keep promise to yourself. Okay, try again. That's an indicator that maybe you need to make your task smaller. That's an indicator that maybe you need to approach it from a different lens. That's an indicator that maybe you're overloaded and maybe you need to start with something even more simple. I mean, I don't know what the reasons are, but it's just an indicator that you need to change something that you're doing. Failure is just a check engine light to tell you that something's not working and that you need to switch it up. And that is fine. You have to forgive yourself, and you have to be willing to celebrate your wins after you have failed. And celebrating your wins is acknowledging your progress, even when it's tiny, reflecting on what you handled well, growing, learning from your mistakes. Maybe you failed, but maybe you grew, maybe you overcame, and that's great. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing. And you need to reflect on that. You need to be happy about that. And that makes you feel excited about building this trust with yourself. This reinforces that you can trust yourself and show up. Because when you have small wins, it means you're doing it. Maybe it's not everything all at once, but you are doing it. And it takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself. This does not happen overnight. This has taken me about 1.5 years to do. It's taken me a while. This is exactly how I did it. And I didn't do it all at once. I didn't. I mean, the friend thing that I went through, that just happened pretty recently. It happened a bunch of times to me, multiple friendships. And it was like the same lesson repeating over and over again. And when I kept failing and I kept listening to them, I kept failing and I kept losing trust in myself, because I trusted that they were right and that I had a problem. There was something wrong with the way I need to do things for myself. When in reality, I should have just done things the way I needed to do them for myself and keep that trust within myself and validated my own feelings. But that took, a couple years for me to really hone in on work on. This doesn't happen overnight, but it progressively gets better and it progressively gets easier. And so starting small is the best thing that I can say. Start with keeping promises to yourself as you continue to go on throughout this process. The way that you can do this on paper is getting a piece of paper, journaling. Start with daily check-ins, okay? So do a check-in where you're looking at your mood, your body, your energy, the truth. Write those down, maybe even a weekly check-in if that's too much for you, right? Like, you just want to make sure that you're tracking your progress. As you continue to go down, you need to set boundaries with yourself, and you can write these boundaries down to see if that you're adhering them to you. Screen time and bedtime are the two examples that I have in my notes, because those are the two that are the worst for me. I checked my screen time today. Look, I work online, so of course my screen time is going to be high, but it's not me working. It's me scrolling, wasting my life. And it's a problem. It's a problem that I have. And going to bed at 12 o'clock is a problem that I have. And those boundaries are something that I'm constantly failing at and constantly trying to get better at. And writing them down and trying to have a format where I can check in on my progress has been pretty helpful. I used to go to bed at 2, now I'm going to bed at 12. So we made some progress. So there is progress there. But being able to track that in a written format has been very helpful. Giving myself a lot of downtime, a lot of solo time has been very beneficial. Making sure that you have plenty of time to reconnect with yourself and what your needs are, and going through the process of using that time to tell yourself affirmations. I trust myself. Like, that's something that I say every single day, especially when I didn't trust myself at all. I didn't trust myself to start my YouTube channel. I quit my job and I was trusting myself, and then all of a sudden, all of my trust went out of my body. It just flew out of my body because I had realized what I had gone through, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did I stay in that situation for so long? How did I not realize what was happening to me? How did I bypass my intuition yet again? Yet again, we have done it again. And so I sat there and I felt so much shame and so much hatred for myself. And what I should have done is I should have sat with myself and just taken a step back and started with the promise every single day. And eventually I did. And that's why every single day I tell myself how much I trust myself, because that makes me realign with the belief that I know what I'm doing and I have that within me, because there was a point where I didn't have that at all. You have to look at trusting yourself as having a relationship with yourself. You are always going to be your best friend. Nobody's going to know you better than you. And if somebody says they know you better than you, don't trust them. They don't. Nobody knows you better than you. You're the only one living inside of your head. If you're religious, God knows you better than you, but that's a different story, right? You have to trust yourself. You have to know that this is a relationship rooted in the belief that you know yourself better than anybody else and that you're a trustworthy person. And if you don't have that belief of yourself, building that is something that will take time, but it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent and being kind to yourself. And somebody who's kind to themselves learns how to trust themselves and learns how to love themselves. Start with having the most healthy relationship you can with yourself, because the more you show up for you, the less permission you will need from other people to live your life. And that's where true freedom is. Because when you don't need the permissions of others to do what you want to do in life and to be who you want to be in life, then you are free of the way society tries to control us. And being able to pick your own path and be your best advocate because you trust that you can do that is something that nobody can take from you. And the more wins you have in your life, the more trust you will build. You know, the person that I was when I was 18, I trusted myself so much back then because I had no other choice. But how much have I accomplished since then? I should trust myself way more. But the way society has been set up, it erodes your trust with yourself over time because it benefits from you not trusting yourself to be great and for you to be somebody that can be controlled. So if you want to be free from a society that profits on your inability to trust yourself, you have to let go of needing permission from anybody else to be yourself and focus on accepting yourself fully and trusting yourself along the process. If this resonated with you, join the Evolution Revolution on Substack, where we talk about ways to improve ourselves, trust, and grow within. I'll have it linked in my description below. And if you enjoy understanding the truth behind the trends, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll see you guys next time.